Good morning. So it's another glorious Friday morning here, and I'm joined this morning by Phil Lloyd. Phil, thank you very, very much for giving up your time this morning to join to do some Q&A questions with me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Nice to be here.
So for those listening, a very quick kind of insight into Phil. So Phil is currently the Chief Marketing Officer at Purplebricks, and I would say that if I were to describe your careers, you've worked at booming car wow, I would say it's about really scaling B2C digital businesses commercially through marketing. And I was sort of thinking about, you've got real breadth in terms of your skill set, brand, the strategy, growth marketing, etc. Would it be fair to say that your superpower, if you like, is to deliver real commercial growth through marketing?
Yeah, I think so. I think marketing should be about making money. I love Mark Ritson's sort of insight when he sits down in front of senior boards and he says what he does. He said, "I'm here to make loads of money for you." And I think he can get away with saying it as bluntly as that. But I think fundamentally marketing should be about that more than any other single thing, particularly in a world, in an economy where sort of big loss-making, VC-backed, venture-backed sort of businesses can no longer really get away without the conversation around profitability and around revenue generation. And I think positioning marketing as being at the forefront, the very front office department in driving that is critical. And clearly the CMO role running that is critical too. So yeah, that's what I enjoy, and that's what I've sort of experienced over recent roles that you've mentioned.
Fantastic, and I'm thrilled that you mentioned Mark Ritson as well. I'm a big fan, and I'm very, very much hoping that he will be joining us on the show at some point in the next few weeks. You may have seen that we did a super interview with Sheridan Shackle of the Marketing Academy, which has gone out very recently. So I'm hoping Mark will join us too. Right, let's dive straight into the questions. So first one, so you've got a real passion for marketing within consumer-focused digital brands. What is it about this particular area that really interests you?
So I'm gonna take issue with the question. Okay. So what I mean by that is I think in the coming years, and I don't think it will be long until we no longer talk about digital brands. I think we just talk about brands. I think almost every, I don't think this is massively new or innovative to say, but almost every brand is a digital brand, or at least has a significant digital facet and component. So I think sort of running the marketing within those organizations is sort of not necessarily a niche, I would say. I think it's actually a big broad area where most people where most people are. So I think the sort of what I love about that is the same thing that I think marketers have always loved about that, which is connecting people with the business. And as I said a minute ago, genuinely trying to drive growth that is more than just the investment that you've put into marketing in the first place. And I think those sort of positive returns, working out the cadence of those returns, working with the business and finance department to how all that flows through into revenue generation. That's what I love, and particularly about consumer businesses, is that it's about talking with real people and understanding real people. So yeah, that's what I love. As I say, I don't know if you asked that question in a couple of years whether that will necessarily be framed in that way, because I think almost every business is a digital business.
You're so right, and it leads me perfectly on to the next question, which is that this landscape is changing at such a pace, and you're absolutely right to mention that. Can I ask you about AI? Because I'd be really interested in your thoughts on how do you see AI impacting both marketers and consumers or customers?
So there's sort of a cynical and an optimistic way, I think, to answer that question. The optimistic way is definitely that in areas around content generation, in areas around ad generation, social, paid social, copy, you can see significant, very initial, significant and obvious ways where you can work with large language models, with artificial intelligence, different software and programs that can really enable you to significantly grow your output and your quality of that output without people necessarily in large numbers, but you'll need smaller amounts of people to sort of run those programs. So I think you can very easily sort of see that, and that's already happening for lots of different marketing organizations. People are dipping their toe in and trying things, and we're the same. I think the longer term sort of view is, can algorithms, can machines do the really deep, complex marketing stuff around strategy and insight and business strategy? Can it really cope and deliver you fantastic, genuine, creative results that you need to sort of drive demand for a particular business in the long term? And it may, and we all are going to go on that journey together, it may well be able to sort of provide that and create that in interesting ways. The only quick cynical thing would be that I think any marketer that's been around the last 15 years has seen a large, significant constant rolling wave of innovation, topics, agendas, etc., whether it's the metaverse, whether it's various different things previously as well. I think I remember sort of with Second Life, was it, that was sort of previously to that. So I think it's all about where you get your information from, and I genuinely think not over pivoting on any one part of this, but making sure you're following closely where consumers are, where people are, where they're spending their time, what tools, software, innovations are they using, and keeping your brand very closely linked to that. I think that's probably a pretty safe way of not pivoting too far away from the norm and into something that's very infrequently used or adopted by consumers.
Do you think we'll see any changes in the marketing structures off the back of this?
Yeah, I think so. I think sadly I can see a world where there are fewer people in marketing departments. I think you'll see lots of I can't see a way where you effectively have almost completely flat structures where a sort of CMO effectively manages software stacks. I think you will still need individuals to run, CRM, but I can see a CRM team not necessarily needing 3 then managers beneath that or 10 managers beneath that. I can see that actually shrinking, and I think we all have a view on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But ultimately, businesses are very hard-nosed, and rightly so, because we are responsible to shareholders and investors. So I can see a reducing marketing team size, though I think there will be critical roles at the sort of head of level that are still very, very important to running some of this stack and software.
We're starting to see exactly that, changes in the structure where you'll have a CMO who's highly commercial, has a real breadth within their skill set, including strategy, brand, really digitally savvy. And then what they're doing is they're going to, it's looking like they will have heads of who have deep areas of specialism. So yeah, we're already seeing requests for changes in those structures. Anyway, I digressed from the question. So we always ask this one because, and I love the responses to this. What do you think will be a priority for CMOs over the next few years?
So I think there's a few different ways of answering it. My preferred answer is, where do you get your information from and who do you listen to? So I think it's already a theme and a trend, which is depending on, marketing is not a perfect science, and there are no perfect rules clearly to how you are ultimately successful. There is a lot of qualitative decisions that you need to make along a journey of any sort of marketing strategy, marketing plan, or organization. And as such, where you get your information from as the inputs, the themes, the trends that you take in and soak in as a marketeer, that you then live on a day-to-day basis in the organization. AI is a good example. that will inform some really important decisions that you're then going to make on headcount or investment and so on. The worry is that just in broader society, we see the sort of echo chamber effect of people staying within bubbles of sort of influence in social media and in broader society. So too, I think there is a mini marketing and CMO version of that, which is if you only get your information from, say, large tech companies, you will believe a certain thing. If you only get your information from, say, Binet and Field, you will believe a certain thing. And I think the fundamental answer I would give is, how are you conscious and cognizant of that kaleidoscope of influence? And how are you smart enough as a CMO to step back and go, all things considered, look, I think these are the decisions that I'm going to make. So I'd say that.
Great answer. Absolutely love that. So you've had some fantastic experiences throughout your career within marketing. And what would you say has been your most defining experience so far?
I'm actually going to say the role before this one, I met someone that I hired, and I won't name him because I think he'd be embarrassed about it, but I've taken him with me to this current role, and he reports into me. He and I, we're very different people, very different experiences. We see the world in quite different ways, but I've come to build a really brilliant relationship with him. He's made me a significantly better marketeer. He himself has never, I think he'd be okay for me to say this, he's never had necessarily the support from a line manager that he's always wanted. And I've been at pains to give him that. And I think we've ultimately created a very valuable relationship for the business that we work in. But it's actually just been so brilliant at sort of, in the middle of my career, I would say, to still find the satisfaction from finding brilliant people. You work with them, you sort of 2 and 2 equals 5, if you like, in terms of our collective output to the business. And yeah, I think there's lots of ways of answering that question, but I just feel like saying that because it's such a good relationship and so enjoyable to work with that person.
I can see the satisfaction that is certainly the pleasure that has given you. And if your colleague hasn't yet done it, it's worth having a look at the Marketing Academy. Their scholarship program could potentially be very interested and is absolutely incredible. So that's worth maybe recommending to him. What piece of career advice has stayed with you that might help others starting out?
I think try not to be too in it for yourself. I think in marketing, and maybe starting out agency side was part of this, which I did. It can be quite a sort of cynical industry to some extent. And you can fall into the trap of, particularly when you get more senior on the sort of client side, you can fall into the trap of making campaigns that you want to do for your own career and your own long-term sort of success. Someone very early in my career gave me the advice, don't do that. And I see other people still sort of, who are big on LinkedIn and they're great at talking about themselves. And I sort of feel a little bit that, I would rather, to the very first question that we spoke about, if you deliver commercially for the business, I believe that that's the best long-term strategy to creating the right interesting, expansive career for yourself. But try not to be too in it for yourself and try and think about your team, but also the broader business and how you just keep delivering to that business.
I like that. We haven't had that before. That's very good advice. And finally, Phil, what's next for your career journey over the next sort of 5-7 years? What do you have in store?
Well, I have a big birthday in 2 years when I'll be 40, and I think that's always, I think in general in life, frankly, like when you get to 40, it is an interesting point. I've got 2 young children, but who are rapidly growing up. Sort of life is in many ways fairly sort of settled. I think the 40 to 50 bracket for any marketeer and senior marketer is a really important one. And I think the interesting next stages are potentially into sort of general management or potentially into different sort of types of roles that are marketing centric but are potentially slightly more expanded, chief customer officer and that sort of thing. I love being a CMO. I always have done. I just love marketing, and I'm still happy to say that I love advertising as well. But I think the long-term place for lots of marketeers, and it might be still within that CMO title, but the long-term place has to be delivering actual growth and profit, and getting right into the heart of the business to do that. I think that's where I see myself in the future, both in current role and future potential roles.
I have every faith that you will be successful in whatever you choose to do in the longer term. Phil, thank you very, very much for joining this morning. Some fantastic answers there, and I'm very grateful to you.
Thank you. Cheers, Susie. Thanks.
Pleasure.